Yeah, we're live. What's up, y'all? We're back for another episode of Biz Buzz Live. I'm your host, Chris Muzan. Sorry for the tardiness. Business called. I couldn't necessarily make it on time, but I didn't want to leave you without another one here this Friday. Uh, let's dive into the retail conversation because, again, it needs some talking about. So stick around. Yes. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Biz Buzz Live. I'm your host, Chris Muzan, your financial coach, helping you through all things finance. Again, the reason why we got this show started here live on LinkedIn and YouTube is specifically because throughout the journey of coaching people financially and having these important financial conversations, whether it's around savings or debt or insurance or retirement or investments or estate plans, inevitably the conversation always comes back to people's cash flow. What comes in and what goes out. That's what it normally comes back to. And there really wasn't a space to have the conversations about how are we choosing to continue to bring in money in our life. A lot of times we know that we should be keeping more of the money that we're making, lowering our expenses, keeping our budget relatively in check. But the other side is, how do we make more money? What if you're in an industry that's having a little bit of a hiccup right now, or things aren't going the way that you wanted to? Well, cash flow is one of the ultimate drivers of your financial life. So if all of a sudden you have a job interruption, all of a sudden you lose your job, all of a sudden, that industry takes a nosedive. There's no more sales coming in. They have to start laying people off. Well, that continues to impact the rest of your financial life. So it's good that we're aware of what are the areas and what are the places in the industries that are growing and ones that maybe are hitting a little bit of a rough snag. And maybe for people that are in those industries, you get enough chance to pivot. Right? You get enough chance to pivot. There's a lot of times where we are caught off guard, right? Where we're caught off guard when it comes to the things in our financial life, or we're caught off guard when it comes to the things of our job life. And so if we're paying attention to the industries that we're a part of and what's going on, then we can pivot away from it or lean into it or figure out some way to keep our cash flow afloat. And so that's what we want to talk about today. We're going to go back into that retail space, that retail side of things. The retail space has had a very rough end of 2024 and beginning of 2025. Some retail companies are surviving, many are not. The reason why we're talking about this is because I know a lot of people that are in the retail space. I used to come from the restaurant space. I used to work at the Cheesecake Factory. I used to be a restaurant manager. That was my background. And whether it would be restaurant managers or retail managers or people that worked in the retail space, were very similar beings, right? Very similar careers there, where it's different every day. You're on your feet. Lots of moving parts, lots of flexibility. You got to be good with people. You got to be good at multitasking. You got to be able to put a smile on your face every day. You got to be able to serve people. You got to go out of your way to make people feel special or comfortable or welcome, whether it's your staff or whether it's your guests or your customers, right? The industries were very similar. And so I would always take a liking to people that come from restaurants, but also people that come from the retail space, because I feel like we're cut from a similar cloth. So I have a soft space in my heart for the retail side of things and the restaurant side of things. But that's why on the show, we'll talk a little bit more about those industries, because I understand what people go through, whether you're all the way up the corporate ladder as a district manager or a regional manager. So you have a bunch of different stores that you oversee. I know the challenges challenges of dealing with a bunch of GMs, whether you are the GM or you're the, assistant GM to that store. I know what it's like to put together schedules and look at your sales traffic and all the stuff. And when we are in an industry that we know a lot about, or, you've been there for some time, sometimes we're not looking at the macro trends of like, is this still the industry to be in? And we just start looking at kind of the micro changes that are happening at the store level or at the company level. But I want to really be able to zoom you out here a little bit bigger. So again, some key trends in 2024, lots of store closures were surging in 2024 and beginning of 2025, specifically legacy type stores, right? Your malls that have Macy's and big department stores like JCPenney's and all those things. Those major retailers have been hit hard. It says here that the U.S. is projected to reach 15,000 store closures, more than doubling what it was last year. So this year, store closures in the retail space are going to double they're expecting. So again, I've said this before, is your industry on the rise up or is your industry on the downturn? You got to get ahead of that in order to make sure that you and your family are good financially. The shopping trends have shifted a bit from major retailers to more small specialty stores, right? Potentially. And even some of those are struggling a bit. Biggest closures have been in Party City, Big Lots, Walgreens, Macy's, and 7-Eleven. They're leading the top closures from last year and this year, and 51 retailers went bankrupt in 2024. 51 different retailers filed for bankruptcy in 2024, right? So again, you being in the retail space, you have to really ask yourself the question, is this the place that my talents, skills will be able to grow, that I'll be able to flourish, that over the next 7 to 10 years, I'll be able to get me and my family ahead financially? You really kind of have to ask that question. The question is, why is this happening, right? In the retail space, why is this happening? Competition, maybe a bunch of competition, but not a lot of demand. So again, I would always joke with people that want to go off and start their own brands or start their own lifestyle brands or clothing brands or whatever those things are, that people don't actually need another piece of clothing, right? Like, it's not a need-based business. People don't really need another t-shirt or another hoodie or another hat or any piece of clothing. Most people don't need that. They might want that. They might want to experience that. They might want to put that on to share what that means to the world, or for them to the world, or whatever the case is, but they don't actually need it. So if there's not a lot of demand for something, sometimes it makes the industries tough, especially when there's a lot of competition. So that could be happening. There's a huge market share shift, right? Where you're getting bigger companies like your Walmarts and Amazons and Costco's of the world are going to continue to dominate because they can keep prices relatively low and get more foot traffic so people can come in for the lower cost items, versus smaller chains and smaller little boutique stores. They may struggle a little bit. Because they have to sell things at full price. So that's happening. E-commerce has been a big part of the shift in retail. Again, in brick and mortar retails, if you work for one of these stores, you might want to pay attention to what's happening on the e-commerce side, see how advanced your company is when it comes to the e-commerce side of things, and whether or not that's an opportunity for them to grow. Fixed costs have become an issue too, right? Again, with sales dropping just a little bit and then having high leases and high labor costs, it doesn't bode well for the industry as a whole. So got to know that, again, is your industry on the uprise or is it on the downturn? And if you believe that it's on the downturn, how do you pivot? That's what we got to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. Those become the questions to help you continue to improve your cash flow. If you want to continue to improve how much money is coming in your life, you always have to be aware of the ways you're making your money. And if you're making your money from one industry, if it happens to be retail or restaurants or any of the things that we continue to talk about on the show, if that's the place that you make your money, then you have to be aware of what's happening in that industry so you don't get caught off guard. So you're not one of the next people that gets laid off in store closures like Party City or Big Lots or any of these companies, right? You're not caught off guard because that will impact you and your family. And my job is to come and help you get to where you want to go financially, help you and your family build the foundation that you need to get to the place that you want to get to. And if the number one way that you're making your income, if the driver of all the rest of your financial life happens to be this job that you have or this company that you work for, we have to get ahead of the curve and make sure that that company will still be around, that it's still the best place for your skills and your talents. And if not, how do we pivot? How do we have new conversations? How do we reach out to more people? How do we identify what our talents are? I was just given a morning mindset call earlier. I do them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, and we'll drop them in here, right? So you guys can get a chance to show up a bit more to those. But I was doing a morning mindset call this morning. And we're talking about that most people never identify their talents. Most people never identify their God-given talents, abilities, gifts, right? The things that you do better than other people. Most people don't identify that. They say, "Oh, I like, the medical field," or I like working with people. But like, what are you good at? What are you really good at? Where does your talent lie? What is it that you can consistently continue to do and continue to know that, like, man, I'm really, really good at this thing? Most people haven't identified their talents. If you identify your talent outside of the scope of what you do for work, again, we're talking to the retailers today, but like outside of you doing well with customer service, or outside of you showing up on time, or outside of you being able to write a schedule, or, feel like you're good in leadership, outside of that, like, what are you good at? What are you good at? And once you identify those talents and skills and abilities that you have, then you can find the industries that are on the uprise, right? They're rising. They're looking for more people. Their outlook over the next 5 to 10 years is that this industry continues to grow. You take your skill sets and you match them in an industry that's continuing to grow. That's how you ensure that you are useful, right? That you are a part of the labor force that can contribute and make good money from it, is because your skills are upticking in an industry that's continuing to uptick. But when you have diminishing skills in an industry that is on its downturn, when you have a skill set that was valuable in the early 2000s but is not valuable in 2027 or 2030, that skill set won't be of the same value, and you're in an industry that's slowly dying, you are making yourself extinct in the workforce. And what it's going to do is it's going to force you and your family to have to change some things financially in order to keep up. It's going to impact your financial life. So how do we combat that? You keep raising your skill sets, identify your talents, identify what you're good at outside of what you've known and what you've worked at for the last 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 25 years, whatever. Outside of that, what are your skills? What are you really good at? And then how do you find an industry that's on the uprise, that's on the uptick, that your skill sets can match and add value in that industry? And that's how you make sure you can secure a little bit more of your financial future, secure a little bit more of your income over time. That's the blueprint, ladies and gentlemen. You can do that through a job. I'm a big proponent of you being more entrepreneurial minded and finding your skill sets and your talents and all those things and finding ways to monetize that. The same, I'm coaching a client, and I've been working together with this couple for probably a little bit over a year, maybe 18 months or so. We keep having these conversations because they're full entrepreneurs. And when I sit down and I encourage them about being the entrepreneur, the best part is you get to go off and dictate your income, right? If you want to make more, you just got to do different things to be able to make more. And they said something the last time we met. They said, like, hey, we just crossed like $70,000 in income for um, the business that we have, right? 70,000 income. And they're like, that's the same thing. All right. My husband used to make as an engineer when he hated being an engineer and he hated going through that process. That was what a job was paying him, was 70 grand a year on a W-2. And he had to get degrees and go into debt for that. Yet he built a business on something that he learned on the internet. And after about 3 years or so, his income now has matched what he was making as an engineer with that degree. I love hearing those stories because that is entrepreneurship. It's if it is to be, it's up to me. Some people think that when you go off and start a business, like you have to make $100 million in order for it to be successful. No, but the same $50,000 you were going to take home at a job and kind of fulfill somebody else's dream and right build somebody else's business, that same $50,000, if you identify your talents, your skills, and you have some courage to go do it, you can make the same 50,000. I'm not talking about like going off to make $100 million. Just like you can play college sports or you can get into the NBA, you can play overseas, but you probably won't be a superstar getting a max contract. There's levels to it. Same thing in business. You can start a business and it could make you $50,000, the same amount of money they would have paid you at that job, slaving your life away. But you have now your talents and your ideas and your skill sets of how to go make money, and you can create the same amount of income. Create the same amount of income. The roads are different. It's not always easier. It's definitely sometimes harder. There's different skill sets you have to learn. There's different mindset things you have to take into account. There's more courage that you have to have. You have to grow as a person, as a human, in order to be able to handle the things that come your way as an entrepreneur. And these are things that people at a job don't necessarily have to go do. So I always push people down that path, but just know you have to figure out how to get ahead of the curve and continue to make money for you and your family. If you can identify your skills and your talents, that's one of the fastest way to get there. If not, at least pay attention to the industries that you're a part of so that eventually you can see when it's on the uptick or when it's on the downturn, and you can plan your life accordingly. Not just because you're loyal to a job or loyal to a career, but because we have to do the things that benefit our families and our financial life. So hope that helps y'all. Again, feel free to tap in. We were a little late today. Had another appointment, sitting down with people. Again, tons of people need our help. Tons of people need this financial coaching, this financial guidance. Some people just need to have a financial conversation with people because they're not having it with anyone but their siblings or their coworker or whomever that they talk to, maybe their spouse. But I always encourage you guys to sit down with a financial professional. Reach out to me. I make myself very available. If you have financial questions, more than happy to answer them. More than happy to go down the path with you. Won't charge you any money, right? To give you a little bit of guidance and a little bit of advice of what you should do. There's no blanket financial information. There's no one financial course that's good for everybody. There's some fundamentals and some foundational things that we talk about, but everybody's course is a little bit different when it comes to money. We're here to be able to help you down that path. All right. Cool. All right. Until next time, y'all. We'll talk soon. Take care.